I was praising the Lord. Lord Jesus. Hey, one contact John here. Had a contact now for about just one contact for some months now. And getting into the genealogy today, which we will do, I have a splitting headache. Think of it as a divided hoof. Okay? Welcome to the study of the New Testament. Let's see where we're at. Let's see. Matthew 1:1 is really what we covered, the book of the generation of Jesus Christ. We saw the threefold seed of humanity, the fact that he is the fulfillment of the first gospel ever preached, or prophecy in the Bible, which is in Genesis 3:15. He is the seed of woman. Because he's born of a virgin, but did not have Joseph's blood. We will see, though, for Joseph to be his father-in-law is also sovereignly arranged. Today, we'll get into the matter of these generations. You can really break these up into three groups, 14, 14, 14, from Abraham to David. Then, David actually counts for two generations. From David to the deportation to Babylon. And from the deportation to Babylon to Christ, 14 generations. We saw that there are three groups signifying the triune God. 3 times 14 human beings. The three groups of 14 human beings. Man, this shows the mingling of the triune God with man. 14 can be arranged in two ways, but they both make sense. 14 is 10 plus 4, which is the fullness, is the 10, creatures 4. So 3 times 14 is the triune God mingling himself with his creatures in full. We can also see 14. Oh my gosh. 14 as 2 times 7. 2 is testimony. 7 is completion of God's move in time and space, especially the old creation. 12 is his move and completion in an eternal perspective. That's 3 times 4 is 12, but 7 is 3 plus 4. It's God, triune God added to the creature for a complete testimony. So 3 times 14 is triune God. If you take 14 as 7 divided by 2, you have 3 times 14. 14 is completion, testimony, 7 times 2, or it's the creature in fullness. Either way, for a complete testimony and to mingle himself with the creatures in full, there was a need of 3 groups of this 14. Okay. Now, how many generations were there? Does anybody know? Completely, somebody raised their hand. Yes. Who is? Yes. 40? No. Anybody else? Yes. 42. Who said that? Thank you. Who said that? Yes, 42 generations. Now, we do solve the number of 42. It wasn't Mark. I say the word immediately is used 42 times Mark. I think that I heard that somewhere in the live study. I'm not quite sure, but I think there's some italics also added. So we have that, but ultimately we do see 42 stations in the wilderness. And the wilderness, they travel for 40 years. So you're like, wait, that's why I thought it would be 40. 40 and 42 are similar numbers, but there's a big difference. 40 is the number of trials and testings, 40 years in the wilderness, reigned 40 days and night. Jesus was in the wilderness for 40 days. 40 is trial, testings, temptations, the end. Now, if you go forward 2 more, not 41. 41 is a bad number. There's a prime number, not good. I know 7 is a prime number. It is completion, but it's not actually eternal completion. But once you get to 11 and 13, the prime numbers really aren't special. They're just kind of a number in themselves, and they're not divisible by anything. So not 41, but 42. Now, 42 is also mentioned at the end of the Bible as times and a half, 1,260 days, 3.5 years, also known as 42 months. The period of time that this is referenced to in Revelation is the Great Tribulation. Now, the Great Tribulation is halfway through the 7-year peace treaty, begins halfway through the 7-year peace treaty with Antichrist and the surrounding nations. We did talk about the fact that the Great Tribulation, though, doesn't begin until the statesman, the seventh Caesar, is assassinated, resuscitated with the spirit of 666, one of the five fallen, equaling Caesar Nero, as a combination, I don't want to say mingling, but a combination of producing the eighth Caesar of the Roman Empire as the fulfillment of the prophecy of who Antichrist is. One is to come, he should not remain, he's going to remain a short while. Okay, that's the seven. He will be assassinated. Now, when he gets resuscitated, the spirit of Caesar Nero, become the eighth Caesar, Antichrist, the man of lawlessness, becomes revealed. He will then go into the temple and at the holy place set up his idol, which will speak. Now, an idol speaking, you're going, then didn't it happen with Balaam? No, Balaam had a donkey, but it was a donkey. We're talking about a lifeless structure to speak. And because of that, people will see he mimics the resurrection of Christ. He then declares himself to be God after he sets up an idol, which nobody's ever seen, a lifeless statue now, speaking. And that speaking coming from where God wanted to speak, which was in the holy place, the Holy of Holies in the temple on Mount Zion in Jerusalem in Israel, in the center of the inhabited earth. That's where God was supposed to be speaking through the Urim and the Thummim, giving instructions and guide the children of Israel, okay? But eventually they became the iniquity of the Ammonites. And the iniquity of the Ammonites is the mountain sayers. They were mountain sayers, not God speakers, but mountain sayers. They were on a mountain, yes, no doubt, but they were saying instead of speaking, saying this, saying that, assuming it was God speaking, but it's their saying. It's a counterfeit. It's human saying. Well, the culmination and harvest of this is when Antichrist sets up his idol and the idol begins to speak. Well, when we look at the Great Tribulation and we see that it begins, with the Antichrist setting up his idol in the temple, it ends with Antichrist and his 2 million man army at Armageddon, the great wine press, where they are treaded upon with Christ and his overcoming bride. As it comes down on their honeymoon, the bridal garments do become military uniforms, and Christ lands on the Mount of Olives openly as he promised, and as prophesied in Zechariah, splits the mountain in half, allows the persecuted Jews, the remnant of Israel that's remaining at the end of the age, who are living, to be a part and be transferred into the manifestation of the kingdom, the millennial kingdom, where they will be the earthly part of the kingdom. The remnant of saved Jews will be the ones in the tabernacle of David teaching the nations how to live and walk and behave. Okay, that's 1,000 years. You go, what if the nations rebel? Well, they end up doing rebelling. That's also prophesied at the very end of the millennium. Because Satan he is not yet cast in the lake of fire. He's in the abyss, and he's held there in a prison for 1,000 years, released at the very end to deceive the nations, Gog and Magog, and roughly in the area of Russia, but this is after 1,000-year millennial kingdom, and they rebel against God, and then God comes down with the consuming fire and consumes them all. And that clears up the last foreign element of instigation of rebellion in man, to instigate rebellion in man, clears it up, toss Satan, the unbelievers, even the demons, those in the sea, into the lake of fire, consummating in the New Jerusalem. Now, why would I say that? Because guess what? After those 42 months comes the millennial kingdom, comes Christ openly. Notice I said he came on the Mount of Olives. It's 42. It's a trial. It's a testing. It's a temptation. 42 is like 40. But it brings forth something, Christ. And that's what we have here in this genealogy, okay? We have 42 generations split up into 3, bringing forth Christ. Now, here is an interesting, striking feature, which we will get to. We will see that actually there were 45 generations if you study history. 3 were taken away because of Joram's descendants. We will see Joram had descendants through the daughter of Ahab and Jezebel in the nation of Israel. We will see the nation of Israel was not recognized among God as the kings. We will not see any of their names here in this genealogy, although we do see them in 1st and 2nd Kings for the sake of history and things like that, and because it is the word of God. But you have to take away 3. You go, okay, well, that makes sense, John 42. Up. Not so fast. In this genealogy in Matthew, David counts for 2 generations. 1, he counts for the generation that ended the fathers from Abraham to him. That's 14 generations. Then he was also the king who brought in the kingdom, and he is counted as another generation, one of the kings. He's one of the fathers, the ending of the fathers, and he's the beginning of the kings. He is a landmark in the ages, the 42 generations. Okay? But then you go, wait, John, that means you now have 43 if David counts for 2. We will also see, there was also somebody here, I think it's Salathiel, begot Zerubbabel, but actually in history, it was, I believe, it starts with a P. I should know this, and I'm so sorry. It's Pedaiah. But Pedaiah, in a sense, the story was to fulfill Deuteronomy 25, which is if a man does not leave an heir or a son, have a son through his wife, and he dies before that happens, his brother's supposed to marry his brother's wife, take her, and raise up seed to inherit the kingdom. And that's what happened. That is actually not the reason why there's a problem. I'm sorry, I actually spoke too soon. It's actually another thing. It is, I got this. You know, I might have to put on the next video as we go through these. There was one that was, we also, there was one that was, oh man, I can't believe it. There's actually one that was taken away. There was one improper one. He was, he paid taxes. He collected taxes for Pharaoh. Pharaoh made him king. I'm trying to think who the heck that was. Well, anyways, he's not counted there because, oh, wait. Oh, it's Jehoiakim. Jehoiakim, thank you. Now, Jeconiah, we will see him and his descendants were not supposed to inherit the throne, yet we see it here in the genealogy. Now, remember, this genealogy goes all the way to Joseph, Christ's father-in-law. All right, now where's the other one that was taken away that's included in the Chronicles and the history of Israel, but it's not included here in this genealogy for a particular reason? It is Josiah begot Jeconiah. Well, according to history, Josiah begot Jehoiakim. It was omitted. Okay? That's in 1 Chronicles 3, 15 through 16, okay? Why is it omitted? Because he was made king by Pharaoh of Egypt and collected taxes for Pharaoh. In other words, it's association with the world. Now we have Ahab marrying Jezebel, an evil woman in the nation of Israel, begetting a daughter who married Joram, whose descendants, the 3 generations, are omitted, in a sense to fulfill Exodus 20, verse 5, where it says, I will visit the iniquity of their fathers up to the 3rd and 4th generations. So it's not included. So Christ can't have anything to do with those 2 types of people. The ones that are associated with the world, Pharaoh, made king by Pharaoh, and those who are involved with idolatry. And that's really what happened, is Jezebel brought in idolatry to King Ahab. And thus, Christ has nothing to do with that. Again, why do I say Christ has nothing to do with that? Because remember, this is the genealogy of Jesus Christ, or the generation of Jesus Christ, son of David, son of Abraham. He needed to fulfill those 2 instances. Now, we say son of David. We're going back to verse 1 here. Okay, so let's start. I gave you a little overview here. Let's start. Son of David, son of Abraham. Now, in order to be a son of David, he was there to fulfill, I believe it's in Jeremiah, where he was the shoot of David. That is in Jeremiah 23. 5 says that God raised up a shoot of David. Okay, so he has to be a descendant of David. Okay, but here, according to this, he cannot be a descendant of Jeconiah if he's to be the true king. Because the previous chapter where Jeremiah prophesies David's the shoot, he's the shoot of David, it says in Jeremiah 22, 28 through 30, none of Jeconiah's descendants would inherit the throne of David. So how can the Lord be the king? How can this be a real genealogy? Well, remember, it ends with Joseph, the husband of Mary, who was born Jesus, who is called Christ. It doesn't say Joseph begot Jesus. Okay? But father-in-law means whatever that lineage or inheritance was, he got it. Now, at the time, though, it was cut down to a stump, down to Joseph, and he was a twig out of that. And Joseph and Mary were from Nazareth, a small town. The sovereignty is absolutely unreal. But who was the other one? Mary. That's actually who Christ received. Well, he was seed of woman to fulfill Genesis 3:15. He's a seed of Abraham in Genesis 12, and in your seed all the nations will be blessed.